Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Hangout number 132. And as I get started here, I want to welcome everybody in the chat room. And I do want to ask everybody in the chat room if you can see and hear me, because my internet crashed. Well, it wasn't the internet, the computer crashed about 30 minutes ago, and I could not access the internet in any way, shape, or form, no matter whether I use Microsoft or Chrome and I was trying every method possible. And 5 minutes ago, I turned off the computer like 10 times, hoping that that would be some miracle. And there was a miracle, and I was able to get onto one of the internet. Yeah, so I got on. I'm just not sure if I'm going to stay on. You can see in here. Okay. If I vanish because something very squirrely is happening with my computer, I could say it's a computer virus. I don't know what it was, but everything just shut down. And I went to the programs and tried to eliminate anything I didn't recognize, but it's never happened before in this computer. So if I just vanish, I will see if I can restart the show, and then I will send you a message through your email. And otherwise, cross fingers. Okay, so welcome everybody. And I've said hello to a lot of people, but let me also say hello to Lex and Julia, did you just, you said can see and hear. Thank you. Okay. This is very, very stressful. Hi, Christy. And whoever, what do you mean this is a better time? Noon. Oh, God, it means I get up about 10 o'clock. So trying to get my show done, get ready between 10 and 12 doesn't make me happy. But today, I'll make some of you happy. Okay, let's go to some stuff before this thing crashes and burns. I just have a very bad feeling about this. 30 minutes, I could not get onto the internet. And I had connection to the internet, I just couldn't get on Microsoft, couldn't get on Chrome, couldn't get on Firefox. I have no idea. I've never seen that happen. It was very freaky. But anyway, I'm here, so let's go on. All right, so first I want to say, I did this video on the Sebastian Rogers case. I did watch their interviews of this mom and the stepdad. So I did a statement analysis, and I put that up. And so if you haven't seen it yet, I'll link it below. I'm always a little late to the party, shall we say. There are tons of people who are already doing all this stuff. Peter Hyatt had done a statement analysis, and other people have been looking at the case. And I was requested, please, Pat, can you look at this? And I always wait till I make sure that I have something to say rather than just jump in to get clicks. And so as I was watching the one interview, then these red flags went up. And I called my statement analysis red flag statement analysis. And I've never used that term before, but I'm now going to use that term in the future. Peter Hyatt, who I highly respect, I've known Peter I haven't, we know each other. I haven't been in a room with him ever because, we've known each other through the internet and emails and all that, especially over the Madeleine McCann case. And I've always liked his statement analysis. And a couple times, it's kind of funny that I think it was the Hartley case, the Tiffany Hartley case. Can't remember the one who went on jet skis with her husband on the Texas-Mexican border, and he ended up missing. And she said the drug dealers were chasing her down and shooting at them. They were just out there having fun. Anyway, I think this is the one. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But sometimes I'll do something like, I'll do my own statement analysis. And I did on that case. And then I see Peter Hyatt has done one. I'm like, let's see what Peter has to say. Because, you're always a little insecure. I don't care how long you've been doing things. When you are analyzing somebody's statements, you don't want to, accuse somebody or even just make it look like they could be guilty. Even if you say, look, I'm not saying they're guilty, but they sure are suspicious. It's a kind of, you feel a little bit uncomfortable with that. I think there's no way not to feel a little uncomfortable. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is you don't want to be a freaking idiot. You do this statement analysis and you're completely wrong. And then you just go slink away into your corner, and hope nobody, eliminate all your videos. So it's one of those things where statement analysis, along with other kinds of analysis of cases, can always make you feel a little bit like, am I right? Because normally you do things behind the scenes if you're profiling or doing statement analysis. Peter Hyde has worked with police departments, for a long time. His police. So he's worked with them, and behind the scenes, he has done statement analysis, and he's trying to direct detectives in the right direction, the same way a profiler would. And I've done statement analysis on cases and told the police, hey, look, this is what I see in this interview that you did with this guy, and hope they go in a direction that I see is important. But it's always behind the scenes. So it's a tool among many tools. And when you're doing investigations, sometimes you could be wrong about many things in an investigation. And along the way, you find out that that's not correct, or that may be correct, but just was not really meaningful. And so you work your investigation based on your best leads and your best analysis. But it can change. So when you're doing it behind the scenes, you don't have to deal with making a public ass of yourself, But when you're doing like YouTube, you can. And a lot of people don't understand that it is a methodology, and it is not necessarily 100% perfectly accurate all the time, because first of all, you're basing it on what you know as far as evidence goes, and secondly, your own abilities. And sometimes, hey, we're not always. I like to think I'm 100% correct, but I'm just going to say that that's probably not accurate. Hopefully close, but not necessarily accurate. So when you go, I did think, I think it was Tiffany Hartley. I've done a bunch of things where I remember thinking afterwards, when Peter did his analysis later, and it wasn't like he was watching my show and then did an analysis. It's not like that. And I don't watch his shows and then do an analysis. I usually steer clear of looking at anything Peter has done if I'm doing a show. I get my viewpoints together first, and so on and so forth. And but I remember, like that one or some other one or many other ones, I remember thinking afterwards, boy, I hope I'm not like completely off on this. And then I go to check out Peter's viewpoint on it and go, all right, we think the same. And which is kind of comforting, because I do respect his abilities. We don't always agree 100% on each one of our deductions, but I respect his abilities. And what he does is full statement analysis. And so when he explains these things on his channel, I'll link his channel. He'll go through all these different things. This is a defensive statement. This shows that they're not telling the truth here. This shows blah, blah, blah. And he goes through all these different details. I really don't do that in my statement analysis. What I do is now what I'm going to call red flag statement analysis. I go through statements and I note things that just pop out and stand out to me as, that's concerning. I have an issue with that. One of my favorite cases that I worked on, a guy was interviewed over his mother and her boyfriend were murdered in the boyfriend's apartment, stabbed to death. And the son, when he was interviewed, who was not a suspect, just a witness, he made the statement, I don't mind that my mom's is dead. I just don't like the way it went down. Red flag. Excuse me? But so what? You're more upset about how it happened than that it happened. And my viewpoint on that is that he is the guilty party. And that's why he didn't want to kill his mother. But, if he had to, he had to. But he really didn't like the fact that he, got in a situation where he had to. So I look for things when I'm reading stuff, not so much for every little detail, but for things to me that stand out. So when I did when I saw this interview with the Sebastian Rogers' mom and stepdad, things stood out to me. So go look at that if you haven't seen it yet. And the red flags in the interview, that really bugged me. Okay, so I don't know how many of you already seen that, but it's a very interesting case. Hi, Juniper, you've rolled in. Some people are rolling in who should be asleep. Lex, seriously? You have insomnia like me? Oh, hi, Tasha. Okay, so everybody has different times. I wish I would do the show, and I can only do the shows when I try to vary it, but I also have issues like I don't want to do my show at 3 a.m. So anyway, so that is something you want to check out if you haven't, because I like the issue of statement analysis. And some of you who haven't heard the story before about how my son is in a hospital, and I talk about that in the show because of how I felt at the time when I thought my son might be dying or dead. I showed this little bear. I said I was, during a surgery, I was in the stall holding this bear, but I didn't explain the bear. This is my son's bear. This is my son's little bear. He had that when he had his bike accident. I mean, this is at the time he had his bike accident. It was his favorite toy. And so when he survived the accident, I went home and got the bear for him while he was in the hospital. And the accident had fused his jaw along with crushing his eye socket. It fused his jaw. So I came in before I had the bear. Oh, and I signed in sign language to him. I said to him, "What do you want? Do you want something?" And he signed, because he knew finger spelling, B-E-A-R. And then I brought him his bear. And then a little bit later, because he was really crying and sad and he just wanted to hug his bear. And then I think it was the next day, I said, "Do you want anything?" And he said, G-A-M-E-B-O-Y, Game Boy. I thought, okay, he's feeling better. But anyway, this is his little bear. And he has some stuff in my storage unit, and I storage outside, and I have a storage trailer, and he put some of his stuff in there, and I found this little bear and his stuff, so I stole it, and now the bear is sitting in my house. Story of the bear. I forgot to say during the show that was his bear. Now people wonder why she have this little bear that looks like he's blind. So, but that's the little bear. That's his little bear. And he's a guy, so he's much more careless about his stuff than females are. He's a cute little bear. I love him too. Oh no, okay, I'm not getting into that, Kurtz. The whole Princess Kate thing, Buckingham Palace. Nah, I'm not doing that, because a whole bunch of gossip crap, and it's her business and not ours. Okay, I don't do gossip. All right, so now, next thing I want to talk about was a profiling issue. When I did the show, the Station Strangler, which is not public yet, but will be public by the time anybody sees this show outside of the people who are here. Station Strangler will go public this Sunday. The Station Strangler is a serial homicide case in South Africa. And so I did a show on that, and it will go public on Sunday. And it was interesting because on the left is Nikki Pistorius, and she has a book called Catch Me a Killer. It's been out for years, but she's now got her show, which she's not in, but she's being played by an actress. And it's a really super popular series, which is pretty, in my opinion, dreadful, and takes a lot of license with actual facts. But anyway, this guy, Gerard, I cannot pronounce the dude's last name. I cannot. I've heard it, and I cannot seem to replicate it. So I'm just going to call him Gerard L. And on the right, you'll see a woman named Irma L., who has the same name. And I liked Irma, and I liked Gerard. And both of them are basically forensic analysts. And so then the question was, what did he, who took over the department of Mickey later on, what did he think of Mickey's profiling methodology? And who's this Irma? And compare with, does she have anything to do with him? So anyway, I bought his book. It's called The Profiling Diaries, and I'm very much liking it. I've got some issues with it, but I have a lot of stuff I love about it. And so, nothing ever is exactly, especially when you're a profiler yourself, you don't always agree with everything, but you also find many things very cool. So I like him. And he says this, Irma, whatever the name is neither my mother nor my aunt. She was a lovely old lady with whom I often disagreed and who passed away in July 2009. She inspired me to do my master's in criminology so that I could testify against her in court as a criminologist. May her soul rest in peace. Isn't that interesting? So she's not related to him. I liked her. But I do object to the lovely old lady because, it's interesting how when somebody disagrees with another person, especially an older person. Well, I don't say he's a lovely old man. That's rare. But when you're a female, I don't know how many times I've been called an old lady, a silly old lady, whatever, crazy old lady. Maybe that's true. But, I get the old lady thing, and I think it's very insulting. So, dude, you shouldn't have done that. Okay, don't call people old. Just say, you could have just simply said, she was a lovely lady with whom I often disagreed. That's what you needed to say. It shows an ageism thing and an insult to older women. So don't do that. Now, the next thing he said, though, I thought was fascinating. He said, whatever you may think of Mickey or her profiling methodology, she deserves credit for getting the unit up and running. And it's funny because I hadn't read his book yet, and I said exactly the same thing after I read her book and after I saw the series. I'm like, and I said it in my video. I said, I'm not altogether fond of her profiling methodology at all. But she did do a cool thing in that she worked with a unit and she got profiling in there and so I said the same thing. But I find it interesting that I guess he's not that thrilled about her profiling method either. So we agree on that. And his issue is the same as mine. He says, in a nutshell, psychodynamically orientated psychologists have a propensity for Sigmund Freud, penis envy, Oedipus complexes, and talking about their mothers. It wasn't my cup of tea. So when he studied psychology, he didn't go for the Freudian thing. And Mickey Pistorius is a big Freudian person. And that stuff drives me nuts. So she's always looking into the history of serial killers and trying to prove that all their issues come to penis envy and mother problems and blah, blah, blah. And she's very Freudian. And I find that most of that nonsense. So he does too. So we both have a similar belief in that. Later, I haven't read too much into his book yet. So far, I'm really enjoying it. He does then sort of say negative things about independent profilers. Not me personally, but people like me. That include me. And he is kind of enamored by the FBI. Their early work, I have no issue with. I do have an issue with the methodology. And now he was talking about this method, this profiling training program, which quite frankly, I didn't even know existed, which goes to show you, if it's such a big training program, why the hell don't we all know about it? So it's called the International Criminal Investigative Analysis Fellowship. And it has these divisions, geographic and criminal investigative analysis. And they have these fellows you can join. And it is they have an in-resident course of training at the FBI Academy in Quantico. And it says here you have to get into the whole thing. They have a lot of good information that they're putting in the program. A lot of information I don't agree with because it's FBI profiling methodology, which I do not approve of. But one of the problems is you got to be part of the police before you can apply for this program. And quite frankly, it's not like it's flooding the country and police departments with profiling and investigative methodology. It's not doing that. So the few people that get into this program who are probably retired police officers, I don't know where they're even working or whether they're even any place. And that's one of our problems with profiling in this country. Because profiling is a puzzle solving issue. It's not really police work. Now you work with the police so that your puzzle solving can be then included in the investigative choices. But people ask me, why didn't I become a police officer? Well, because I would suck. I mean, I don't like dealing with, I don't want to run around the streets dealing with criminals. I'm a chicken crap. I mean, I am. That's not me. I'm not a strong person physically. And I don't have that kind of guts to speed around in my car, jump out. And I don't like to control things. I don't like to push, make you stand there and you do this and you do that. That's not me. My daughter did that. My daughter is 1 year off of retirement now. She was on the street for many years and I did ride-alongs with her and it was frightening. I may tell you, she was good. And then she became a detective. And she's been in child abuse. She's been in sex crimes. She's been in homicide. And now she's coasting out in domestic. And But the problem I always had was that the analysis part is not the same thing as being a police officer. And a lot of police officers who become detectives don't have the analysis ability. Of course, my daughter's different, but a lot do not. And so they get to be detectives just by being there long enough and drinking with the right people. And then they don't go to training. They just learn on the job. And some of them aren't logical at all. It's a different skill set. So I would like to see profiling in the department, a profiler working there, one who does deductive profiling, not a lot of this guesswork crap and not a lot of statistical crap, to analyze crime scene information. So when the detectives busy doing all their work, they can come back and say, what do you have for me? And then they can share that, and the detectives can go back out and do interviewing and, you know, all the stuff they've got to do, because there's a lot of work and they don't have a lot of time to sit around thinking. And of course, I would like to see every detective have basic understanding of profiling so that they can handle in the first 48, see things at the crime scene, and in the case that may benefit, and so that doesn't go off track. Those are the things I would like to see. I would like to see basic logic things happen with profiling connection to actual investigations. And I think some of these things are more of an ego trip for certain people. They're big, and you know, it's like you know, this guy too, he's been out there, Gerard has, with the police department for many, many years, and he's proud of his work, which he should be. But because of that, he's also, hey, this is the way things have to be done. We can't allow these other independent people. We can't allow programs to be run where people who are not police, just even though he wasn't originally, where people could learn to be profilers, like lawyers or doctors, and they could be then hired in, maybe as a civilian, into the police department. Can we also help detectives be better profilers? I just want to go with things that work. And I find it interesting when you exclude an entire 99% of a population from a job because they don't want to be on the street as a cop, because that's a whole different thing. And interestingly, even a private investigation in the state of Maryland, I don't know if it's still true, but I was a private investigator for a while, and I could get my license in DC and in Virginia. DC just had to breathe, and Virginia you had to take a course, which I did, and Maryland you had to be a cop. And so it was a retirement program, retirement job for police. So when they retired from the police department, they could go right into private investigative work and make money. And they excluded anybody who hadn't been in the police department. So basically they had control over the whole private investigation world, and all those jobs went to them. Was that right? Now, did they might have some good abilities? Absolutely. But does that mean they're the only ones who should ever get that job? That's ridiculous. So, and that varies across the entire nation. But I believe that anybody who gets proper training should be able to work in a field, because if they actually can do what they can do, why can't they do it? And I ran a course, I developed the first criminal profiling program in the country for Excelsior College. I had a lot of, it was online, it was five 15-week courses and different aspects of profiling and crime scene analysis. And along with the people who were not detectives, I had detectives taking the course, which was fantastic. They were wonderful students, and they wanted to learn more so they could work their cases. And unfortunately, the program got killed by Excelsior College because they decided that as a professor, I didn't grade inflate and allow plagiarism enough to have the crummy students pass. So they didn't rehire me, and then they hired a bunch of people who had no skill at all, and I don't even know what happened to the program. And they watered the whole program down. It was very sad. But that would have been useful, because the detectives and people who wanted to go into detective work, or people who wanted to be profilers, could actually learn stuff. So that's what I'm hoping to eventually do with YouTube as well, since that other program has been eviscerated or killed. So that's my little statement on that today. Very French pronunciation. The Afrikaans one is very, very difficult. Boy, was it ever. That's why I tried and I couldn't do it. Your daughter must have a thick skin. My daughter is pretty cool. She's a hard work. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe you're not talking about my daughter. Maybe you're talking about Julia's daughter. I don't know. Let's see. Sorry. First different person, but there we go. Yeah, this is true. Pat really wants to keep the channel educational. I do. That's my purpose. And although it definitely kills my ability to earn a living. It's still what I want to do, and I'm going to stay with it. Oh my God. Aisha's from South Africa. So it goes something like La Bouche Cogni. Cog, pronounced like car. Cog. La Bouche Cogni. Thank you. All right, let me go on with some actual crime stuff. But I wanted to bring that up because I want to talk about criminal profiling a lot. Let's talk about this jackass. Thank you, Benny. Benny brought this to my attention. Okay, let me find Magnotta. This is Luka Magnotta, who is one of the creepiest guys that ever existed. He was a porn actor, and he hooked up with this poor guy, Jun Lin. He was a student, and he brought him home because they were going to have a nice evening together. And then he killed him and chopped him up and he did it on video. And very few people have seen that video. I have actually seen the video. It was very unpleasant. And it was horrifying that was actually put out there. So the family of Jun Lin, I hope they never saw that. Unbelievable. But and Magnotta went about it. He was just enjoying himself, and he had his pet there with him, like chewing. It was bad. So anyway, Luka, this guy, he's in the same medium security prison as fellow killer Paul Bernardo. They could be best buds. Okay, Paul Bernardo is a guy who was a serial killer with Carla Homolka, his wife, who allowed him to kill her sister. And then when he went on to kill other teens, and she claimed domestic abuse, and she testified to some extent against him, and he's in prison for life, and she didn't get much time, and she's out living under an assumed name, and she got married and had children. So sweet. Anyway, so what's happening with this piece of crap? All right. So he said this is a comment from him. He's 41 years old now, and he's claiming to be transgender, and he needs the specialized support of a medium security prison. So you see, he wasn't in a medium. He was in a much more secure prison, but he says because he's transgender, and he needs therapy and help for that they can't provide that in the other prison. So he wants to go to medium security. You see, he says, gay is a choice. But trans is who I am. Okay. That's a weird statement. Anyway, let's see what happened with him. 4 doctors recommended that this horrible psychopathic killer cannibalist type guy needs to go to the medium security prison because they offer space and support to explore around a proper gender identity that would allow, his name is now Violet, I think it's, or Violet, I don't know how you're pronouncing it, to express and present her gender as she sees fit, and for her to experience living with this gender identity. Here's my thing. If you want to change genders, if you say you're a trans, I'm not going to get into the political aspects of this, don't commit crimes. Once you commit a crime and you have to go to prison, I don't give a crap. I don't. You don't have any rights to explore anything. This guy didn't get to explore anything. You took that right away from him. Why do you, when you're in prison, you have the right to explore? What if you want to explore other things? What if you want to explore, let's see, you feel a great need to have sex with 50 women. Can't you explore that? Could that be something you have a right to explore? What if you want to explore drugs? What is this that you get to explore any damn thing? You're in prison. You should be able to explore your soul. That's why they allow a pastor or a priest or somebody to come in and chit chat about, maybe you can find out that you're not a good person. Maybe you can just delve into your psychopathy. And maybe in your next life or in heaven or in hell, wherever the heck you end up, maybe you can pursue being a better person. That's basically it. Other than that exploration, I don't think you deserve any exploration. And yet, why does he want to go to this medium security? Because he loves volleyball and tennis, which I guess he wants to play because he's bored in the maximum security. Magnotta is one of these psychopaths who he's a complete pathological liar, and he's very, very manipulative. And so there's nothing new about that. In case you didn't know what he did after he killed Lynn and chopped him up, he distributed his severed body parts across the country using Canada Post to mail hands and feet in pink tissue paper and black gift bags to politicians in Ottawa and to 2 schools in Vancouver. He stuffed his victim's torso and legs into a suitcase. He dumped that in a garbage pile, disposed of his head in a wooded park. This is a lovely fellow, isn't he? He was finally arrested at an internet cafe in Berlin, Germany. He admitted to slaying, but he said he wasn't criminally responsible because he was suffering from schizophrenia at the time. Schizophrenics everywhere are going, get out of here. That's not, I'm going to say that the way that Magnotta cold-bloodedly videotaped everything and did what he did, that does not reek of schizophrenia. So yeah, schizophrenics aren't dismembering bodies all over the world in that fashion and putting them and videotaping. The Montreal jury, thank God, rejected that claim. His current diagnosis is severe personality disorder. It's called psychopathy. Stop running away from psychopathy. And predominantly narcissistic and histrionic traits. Magnotta identified as bisexual in his intake interview, but now says he's a woman trapped in a man's body. Stop letting serial killers, well, he's not one. He wasn't a serial killer, but he could well have been one. Because, I wouldn't put it past him to have done it more than once if he had the opportunity. The guy is a violent psychopath. He's sick as hell. And he plays a game. Serial killers and other psychopaths, often when they are captured, put in prison, just change the game. That's why you can't trust them. They will change their game when they're in prison because now they cannot commit the crimes they want to commit. So they start doing other methods of manipulation to get attention, to do whatever it is that makes their day better. So the prison system should not be playing their game. And it's disgusting that they would even give him the time of day. And I don't care if he really feels he's trans, if he really feels a woman is trapped in his male body. Tough shit. Your body's trapped in a prison. I don't care what's trapped in your body. End of discussion. So that's a good question. I don't know if they're going to do that, but it's amazing how much, if you actually look into how much prisons will put into, they'll allow medical procedures that are ridiculous with taxpayer money to play these games. It's disgusting. I mean, I think they have to do what they have to do so there's not cruel and unusual punishment. But I'm sorry, at a certain point, just because you change your mind about something or want something doesn't mean you get it, because you already committed the crime and you're going to pay for that. So a prison for the criminally insane, as far as I'm aware, no changes, and he wants to stay there. He's not criminally insane. He's a psychopath. He's not criminally insane. And the problem with that is when you go to one of those places, when you become uninsane, you can get out. So you don't want the guy ever to walk the streets again at all. Oh, yes, he was. He had his film collection, and that was definitely something. Germany had a total wacko serial killer called Pink Panther. Got a sex change in prison. And again, these are things that they're playing games. That's what they're doing. They're playing games, and it's just very annoying because they always play a game. And so considering the playing game issue, let's go to playing game issue. Okay, so this guy it's quite a story. So this fellow, his name is Sheldon. His last name is Sheldon. Sheldon Jr. Sheldon Sr. His father was a criminal, and his son is now also a criminal. So he's got a very criminal family. And he was in the correctional facility here. Here he is. Now, who is this guy? Well, he is a guy that appeared on Joe Rogan, and he was being touted by this guy from the Innocence. Oh, that's him. That's him on the program. And I will link that because it is fascinating, actually. Was it Benny? Benny, was it? Yeah, Benny, you told me about this. And said, you got to listen to the show. So I did listen to the show. And the guy is such a pathological liar and he can't keep his story straight. But anyway, he's on the show. And there's this tard. I'm sorry. Did I say that? He's an Innocence Project guy, and he actually introduces this piece of garbage as the most wonderful guy ever. Amazing. He's a miracle. And he just goes and this glowing crap about the guy, just glowing. And so what happened is he went to prison. The claim is his claim, the Sheldon guy. He went to prison for, he said, a robbery. All it was a robbery and a guy that got like a cut that took just a couple stitches. And I went to prison for 50 years. And they talked about how, the judge, who was African-American as well, that he gave him 50 years and he's like institutionalized racism and all this. Again, not a political channel, but gave him this huge thing. And how ridiculous was that? Why did they throw his life away? Didn't give him a chance. And all this stuff. And while he was in prison, he just became this great guy. And then when he came out of prison, he worked trying to, do all these good things for the community. And he was part of this project and all this kind of nonsense. And they got, first of all, let me see if I can find the statements here. Okay, so this is a statement about him growing up. Harlem was a rough place in the early 80s, but it was especially rough for Sheldon Jr. His mother, Teresa, was white. His father, Sheldon, was an addict. So his mother was white. His father was an addict. So, is white something equal bad as like being an addict? Because you would think it's, hey, mom's white, dad's black, if you're going to go over there. But it's like mom's white and dad's an addict. Because whiteness, I guess, is like addiction. Anyway, and both of them were deaf. Okay, I worked in the deaf community. They raised perfectly fine kids, but apparently not so much here because his father, Sheldon, was a criminal. His family was among the poorest of the poor, blah, blah, blah. Well, and their friends called him Slinky. All right. Let's see. They arrested him 4 days before Christmas in 1997, pulling him over as he drove home from a shopping trip. He was, by the way, married and had a kid who turned out to be a criminal too. But anyway, he faced charges of armed robbery and attempted murder. I knew I was going down, he said. This time he was convicted. A judge sentenced him to 50 years in prison with no chance of parole for 41 years. He saw it as a life sentence. He promised Tina, that's the wife, that he would try to provide for her and their children behind the bars. Oh, he had more than one. No, their child behind bars. But as soon as savings ran out and mother and son were on their own, and he was already looking at other women, somehow through the bars. I can't remember if he married one in prison. It always gets so confusing. He had fans. Anyway, so this is his son. His son apparently punched a guy in the head, and the guy fell into the street. A Chinese student punched a Chinese student in the head, and the guy fell into the street, punching, that game, knockout game, and got run over by a car. So that's his son. Anyway, so he supposedly comes out of prison. He's the best guy ever. Of course, he's the best guy ever. Well, first of all, let's talk about the 50 years. He makes it sound like, he didn't do anything bad. He was a drug dealer from early teens. He first became a lookout for a drug gang. Then he became a drug dealer, and not weed. He was dealing harder drugs, cocaine and the like. And then he became an enforcer. And he said he had gunfights all the time. So he was running around with illegal weapons, shooting at people. And then apparently he went to prison. And when he came out of prison, he was pissed off that some people owed him money. So he went after them to get his money back. He shot one guy in the back. I guess we're going to miss that. So in other words, he's an incorrigible criminal. And years of being drug dealer, not just a drug dealer, but an enforcer in the gangs. So this was not a nice fellow. And so when the judge saw his incredibly long record, he's like, you need to stay in prison. Well, anyway, they got him out early. And the Innocence Project people are saying, oh, he shouldn't have gone. Blah, 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 blah. So anyway, what happened? Well, apparently after he got out of prison, this fellow, Colin Small, was sort of guy, I think it was supposedly a childhood friend, but he was in a different gang, and they were in prison together. And he went over to Sheldon's location, Sheldon Johnson Jr.'s house, and he's been charged. Sheldon Johnson was charged with murder, manslaughter, and weapon possession for allegedly killing this 48-year-old man. And these are pictures of him taking the body out of his apartment. He tried to fake things by putting on a women's wig at different points in time. So he chopped him up, and he's trying to remove him from his apartment. So this is this statement here. Where is it? No, not that one. Where is it? Oh yeah, Innocence Project fails. Yeah, no kidding. That guy's a psychopath. He's always a psychopath. He is a violent psychopath, incorrigible psychopath. You can't be a psychopath. Incorrigible killer, criminal, incorrigible criminal. And has always been that since he was an early teen. You can't play that stuff down. He's a danger to the community. And sometimes what happens is you get these groups that just say, oh, he's been rehabilitated in prison. He's such a lovely guy now. No, he's playing a new game like Magnotta. He's playing a new game because he can. Because you all fall for people out there in certain worlds. You fall for this stuff. And of course, we like to believe people can be rehabilitated. But if you're going to be rehabilitated, you better understand who you're dealing with to begin with. Psychopaths aren't rehabilitated. They just change the game. Well, when he got out, he killed this guy within a year. I think he was only out like 9 months when he killed this guy and chopped him up. And by the way, when people ask me, why do people chop people up? A lot of times it's because they do live in an apartment and they can't get the guy out. So they have to chop them up in order to be able to take them out in pieces out of their apartment. Because if you live in a house, you can just carry the guy out and throw him in your trunk and drive away. When you're in an apartment, you could try roll it up in a rug and try to go down the service elevator, but maybe he doesn't have a car. Well, then what are you going to do? So now you got to take the guy out in pieces. So anyway, so the Innocence Project fails, yes. And I want to point out this channel because I'm in love with it. All right. I'm going to link that below too. I've never seen this channel before. So Judge Dubin is the person from the Innocence Project side of things, that one who kept saying Sheldon Johnson's just the greatest guy ever. But the guy who runs his channel, I forgot the guy's name, but anyway, it's called he's got this channel and he just tears apart the Innocence Project. And I've never seen this before and absolutely thrilled because, again, I don't mind if Innocence Project finds somebody they truly believe is innocent and wants to, because the system has truly wronged that person because they did something with the evidence or whatever. I do not want an innocent person to stay in prison when they shouldn't be there. Of course not. But when you start supporting people like Scott Peterson and others like that, O.J. Simpson, stop it. Please stop it. Because, first of all, you're really not about innocence then. You're about trying to you don't like the system. You don't like death penalty. If you don't like death penalty, fine, fight for anti-death penalty. But stop trying to get killers out of prison are killers. And this guy shreds a lot of the stuff of the Innocence Project. And I just enjoyed the heck out of it. So I never heard of his channel, but I'm going to link that because I would like to see. I'm not fond of the Innocence Project. I've seen too many people that get out of prison I know are guilty as hell, and they know they're guilty too, and they don't care. I want to see a new style of Innocence Project. I want to see a new style where we don't play this game. We're actually going to only look for cases where we truly believe that the person was completely wrong, not by some technicality, not by some way we can just get away with saying he was wrong, but by the fact that you really truly think that person is not the person. Because that's important. It is important to not allow innocent people to be in prison. It's also important not to allow governments to railroad people into prison. I don't like that either. And I have a couple cases I've worked on, which I think the wrong person is in prison. And it's very upsetting to me because I think they just wanted to close the case down. Now, usually the person who's in prison is a scumbag and needs to be there anyway. Sometimes it's just a, easy person to pin it on, like Christian B. and the Christian Bruckner and the Madeleine McCann case. I mean, he's a psychopathic scumbag. Sure, he's what he is. He's a sex predator. But there's zero evidence linking him to the crime of Madeleine McCann. So I don't think it's okay just to pin the crime on him when there's no evidence of him committing the crime, just because you want to either get glory, that the German prosecutor, or you want to close the case down. I mean, and so I've seen this in smaller cases which you wouldn't even know existed. And so I have a couple cases I will present on my channel that I work where I think absolutely the wrong person got convicted of the crime. And when they got convicted, I think I did one was the Linda Silva case. I've done that one. And when the guy got convicted, it was on nothing, like literally nothing. It's like, how do you convict somebody like that? But if you get a certain jury and they don't like the guy, then they might not care. It's just like, okay, we'll go with that. So sometimes a prosecution is questionable. So a lot of times I talk about defense attorneys not caring about the truth and just trying to get anybody off, like Casey Anthony. But then again, I've seen some prosecutors just do things for their own glory, to whatever reasons they're doing it. And so there's some prosecutors which aren't too ethical too. So I'm for the truth, regardless of what side it lands on. I'll check your comments and we'll go to something else. Okay. Let's see. Oh, hell no. Isn't wanting to face your prison sentence. Sorry, I read that wrong. I thought I read that as want to face the person that you harmed. I don't know why I read that wrong. Because sorry about that, Gertz. I jumped when I read that. Yes, a person who is truly repentant, truly recognizes their guilt, would say, I accept the prison term. I deserve every shred of it. That is true. And I'm not going to be dating online and having women come in and have sex with me. Yeah, yes, I am going to accept 100% my guilt and that I deserve the sentence. Yes. So the reason I read it that way and went the hell no first, because a lot of people think if they cared, if they really were repentant, they would talk to the family of the person they harmed or to the person they harmed. Let's say it's a rape. They would talk to the woman they raped, and they would apologize and say how sorry they were and how bad they were and blah, blah, blah. But if a psychopath will just lie his way through that and he'll enjoy it. So that's just all fake. So, but a lot of people want that. They want that person to, when that psycho gets up in court and he gives his statement, it always annoys the heck out of me. It's like, I'm sorry, I committed the crime. I want to reach out to the family and tell them. I'm like, stop letting that guy do that. He's just playing them. He's just playing them. Stop it. I don't know. That really annoys me. Or when a family member wants to go to the prison and talk to the killer of their child, the rapist, serial killer, and talk to them and say, why did you kill my child? And he goes, well, and then, why do you want to talk to a psychopath? He's going to lie to you anyway. He liked killing your child. He enjoyed every moment of it. Why do you need to give him an audience? So so apologize for jumping on that when you were actually saying the correct thing. I just get so annoyed when I people think that that any psychopath like that repents about anything. They do not. They do not care. 100% do not care. Kurtz, I'll grow up 100% on this one. Insisting on getting known killers out and using technicality is psychopathic too. Yes, it is. So Innocence Project, if you know that guy is guilty and you just want to get him out for whatever political reasons or whatever glory you're going for, you have a narcissistic personality disorder of some sort and no ethics. And it's disgusting. And a lot of times you take along a bunch of college kids to do all this work and you get them all enthusiastic because, it's very annoying. What's the evidence? There's nothing on Bruckner at all. Absolutely zero. Yeah, some guys are an easy pin, but absolutely, they have nothing linking him to the crime. They have evidence linking Bruckner to the area and prior deluge. That's it. And could he have, if there was evidence Madeline had been abducted, if there was evidence pointing nowhere but an abduction, I think Christian Bruckner would have been a good suspect. Absolutely. Would I look at him? Yes, I would. And even if I found that there was no sign, no evidence of abduction, because sometimes there isn't evidence of abduction, even if there is abduction, would I look at Bruckner? Absolutely. But there's a difference between looking at somebody and claiming they did it when you don't have any evidence that they did. And that the evidence actually is pointing away from abduction. And you're refusing to look at the evidence that points away from abduction. That's where the problem comes down to. Well, remember that, Chris. Oh my goodness. Sometimes, by the way, when I'm reading some of the comments, you're all talking to each other, and I miss like the first part of the conversation. So then I think you're talking about something different than you're actually talking about. Which, oops, But that's the fun of the hangout. It's a very relaxed place, and it's not. You don't have to be overly. We don't have to be overly specific here. Okay, I want to talk about. I just want to mention. Let's see what I want to mention. I'm looking for my little pictures. Oh yes. I want to mention this. There's a woman. Her name is, what is her name? She's a North Carolina mom. She's just been arrested because she killed the second infant while co-sleeping. The child died from asphyxia due to unsafe sleep environment just a year after her 3-month-old baby died in the same bed. Okay, now, there's a couple different issues here that I want to talk about. Her name is MacKenzie Caitlin Reed. She's 24 years old. So one baby died in 2022, then when she supposedly rolled over on it and suffocated it, and the second one has died as well. She's been charged with involuntary manslaughter after killing her baby accidentally by co-sleeping while stoned a year after her oldest child died in the same way. So supposedly she's stoned at the time, so she's not aware what she's doing. Let's see. Police were called to her home in Wilmington, North Carolina, for an unconscious infant who was not breathing. They found the infant's mother, MacKenzie Reed, was co-sleeping with the infant, and during the night, she suffocated the child. And it was the second time. Reed, the woman, said she could not believe she had done this a second time. She's like, oh my God, not twice. Anyway, they said that she'd been smoking THC and using THC gummies during the day and evening. But, again, let's all say that their drugs it's a victimless crime. Doing drugs is victimless crime, unless it's two babies. Okay. Supposedly, she had twins. So when the baby's twins started crying, the father woke up to find the baby face down in the bed with Reed's arm across him and his face in a blanket. So she was arrested and charged with felony child abuse, involuntary manslaughter. And that's that. She says she got a bunch of kids and she killed 2 of them. Now, is this Munchausen syndrome by proxy? I don't think so. Because a lot of times when kids are accidentally suffocated or are labeled SIDS because they just don't know how the child died. The only reason they believe this child was suffocated is not because of the autopsy. Let me show you this autopsy. Can an autopsy tell the difference between SIDS and suffocation? Since there is usually no way to tell the difference between suffocation and SIDS at the autopsy, the scene investigation is of utmost importance. So in this case, the husband found his wife. Father found the wife. Father found the mother. So maybe they're not married. She's lying on top of the kid, and the kid is underneath her arm, squashed into the bed. And I guess basically he said she was lying on top of him. So that's why they ruled it suffocation. Had she not been on top of him, they might have ruled it SIDS and had no clue how the child died. And this is very important because when you're doing investigations, you have this issue. Did the child die just some natural thing, or is mom or dad involved? Usually mom. In this case, since she was doing drugs and there's 2 ways that kids get suffocated with, quote, co-sleeping. One is alcohol and the other is drugs. Excessive amounts where the person is not conscious of what they're doing and they roll on top of their kid and kill it. And this has given co-sleeping a really, really bad name because the majority of the world co-sleeps. A whole lot of people in the world co-sleep because they don't have that many beds. They're poor places in the world where families sleep together. And so a lot of people co-sleep. The kids don't end up dead. I co-slept with two of my children. And I started with my daughter because I was nursing. I nursed her in bed. I never had a crib, and she grew up. And then my son was born. She grew up to be 4 when she left the bed. And my son then joined the bed when he was born. And so we had him as an infant nursing. And then the 2 of them are in the bed until we finally said, okay, enough already. And we could get both of them out of the bed. Because I was a nursing mom, it's a whole crap load easier to nurse with your baby there with you than having to jump up and go into other rooms all the time, or even get out of bed to get a kid out of a crib. And there's a lot of belief that one of the problems with Sid's death is that the child is isolated away from the mother, which is every natural kingdom of animals. The babies stay with the mommy, and the comfort of the beating heart and the closeness to the skin. All of my friends co-slept with their children and nursed them. None of the babies are dead. But we also weren't drug users and alcoholics. We weren't partying and crashing on top of our children. So a lot of times they blame co-sleeping on just the idea that the child is in bed. But that's not why the child gets killed. Do I think this mother's Munchausen's? No, I just think she's a careless, stupid mother who is also a drug user. So when you have children, you should not be using drugs. And if you're using drugs, you should put your child in the safest situation you can put your child, considering that you can't take care of it properly. And one way is not to put your infant in bed when you're so unconscious you don't know if you're rolling on top of the child. So she deserves to go to prison. I have no problem with that. While I'm talking about that, I want to re-mention, because these things are so tricky sometimes. So you know that I talked about Veruca Salt. She's the porn star, shall we say, OnlyFans, and she had a baby with a guy that she was in Australia. The baby's father was in England. She's never mentioned his name. She never actually talks about, which concerns me. When the baby died, she never talks about him as being like the baby's father lost his baby too, and she's never seemed to be concerned about the fact that father lost his child, which kind of creeps me out. Anyway, this is the part of it. She had a very fancy funeral because she's an influencer, YouTube. I mean, she's on TikTok and all that, influencer. I want to point out a couple things though. Now, the reason I had questioned when her baby died 6 weeks later of SIDS, supposedly, the question was, did that child die a natural death? And and I said, well, if you're investigating, you got to investigate. And she's struck back at people like myself and others who said, did that child die naturally? Now, this is an educational channel, so I'm not accusing her of killing the kid. What I'm saying is you got to look at, if you're investigating, you have to look at situations. She, Veruca Salt is her fake name. I forgot her real name. Tiffany something. Anyway, she had a history which was concerning to me. She had gone to a friend's wedding, and during the wedding she vanished, leaving her phone behind, and started a whole police. They were searching for her for a week. They thought she'd been kidnapped, and she ended up someplace in a brothel. And she claims, I just forgot the phone. This is a person who was always on social media, always on the phone, and she claims that she just forgot. I think she liked the attention. I think that was the whole thing, which to me is Munchausen syndrome. Okay, so we have a person who exhibited that, and then she went on to being a prostitute. She went on to have an OnlyFans channel where she poses in some of the stuff she does is really disgusting. And she also did some stuff while she was pregnant. And she was quite horrified. However, I will say this about her. She can be funny. She's actually can be quite amusing. So I saw some of her things, especially with the baby. Now, here are some pictures of her with the baby. And when you look at all her videos with her and the baby, this is on TikTok, It's quite adorable, actually. She just, it's like she seems to adore this child. She talks about all the things that his little outfits. She talks about all the things that she loves about having a baby. And she seems like a really attentive mother. And so, you look at this, and you go, oh, and she says he's the best thing that ever happened to her. It was the happiest moment of her life when she had this little baby. And maybe it was, so you have to look and say, if you're an investigator, does the fact that she looks like a happy mom mean you shouldn't look into, is there some issue with the SIDS death? No, regardless, because there are other things that make you wonder. For example, she says she's nursing the baby, and one time she even shows expressed milk. There's not one video of her nursing the baby. And for a woman who doesn't have a problem doing pornography, it's odd to me, because most nursing moms love to show how the baby's nursing. And then she keeps saying she's going to get at the bottle for the baby. Well, if you're nursing, why are you getting the bottle for the baby? So there's a lot of conflicting things. And then there's some things that happen after the baby died, which people question. She went to a Taylor Swift concert, and she was super excited. She got to go to this concert like within a couple of weeks, and she's having a great time. And she says, well, she already had the tickets, and she just wanted to do something happy. And that's okay. But you can't expect people not to question that. That's just, your baby died and you're out having a great time. It's makes people uncomfortable. Okay, so there are those things that make people go, Another thing, which is, I just have to point out, again, I don't know that she did anything to this baby. It may be that baby was the happiest moment of her life, because even people who are questionable in other ways, sometimes a child in their life does bring them joy and love, and they do love that child. So this, she may have having that baby might have made her feel different than she's always ever felt in her life, that she had this level of happiness because of having this baby. And she seemed to adore it in all her videos. But I'm going to point this out. She is an influencer and she does videos. You have to be also very careful of people who do shows on YouTube. We know certain people who have shown their children are now in prison for abusing their children, right? Because when you're putting on a show, it's a moment in time. You can not be happy to be a mother, but pick up the baby and go for all of 5 minutes on your video. You can purposely show things that make you look like you're happy to be a mother, excited to be a mother, being a loving mother. She's an actress. She's a porn actress, but she's an actress. And so you have to be aware that that's also not proof. Now, I do think she's actually talented. I'll give her that. I mean, I actually saw some of her stuff and I thought she was actually kind of fun to watch. I mean, and she may be she's someone who sadly lost her child and she's just trying to deal with it. Maybe that's the way she deals with things, is just to move on and remember her child, and has nothing to do with anything. She's not guilty of anything. Well, guilty of doing porn, which I find appalling, but she's now found influencing. She's back to doing her OnlyFans channel, supposedly, to make money. But if she just were an influencer, she'd be good at it, because she's tatted up, and I don't find that appealing, but I gotta admit, she's got a kind of a fun personality. So when you're doing an investigation, what you're going to run into is all these different things. Pro, con. When you're profiling, pro, con. And sometimes it's very difficult to sift through those things. The important thing to remember is, just because you're investigating or have concerns doesn't mean that the person's guilty. It also doesn't mean that they're not guilty. It just means that until you have actual proof, you cannot say the person is guilty of anything. You could just have concerns. That's why we use the term person of interest as opposed to a suspect. Like right now with the Sebastian Rogers case, I would say the parents are persons of interest. I don't know that they've been excluded. I wouldn't call them suspects, because I don't believe there's enough evidence to make them suspects yet. They're persons of interest. And there's nothing, and a person of interest doesn't mean they're guilty. So when Veruca Salt's baby died 6 weeks in because of her history. She was, to me, a person of interest in the sense that I would like to know what the autopsy said. I would like to know what evidence there is for or against her possibly harming her child. Or is she did she love the heck out of that child, and her behavior just made her suspicious, a suspicious person, and therefore eventually they would just be tossed away, and you go, okay. So that's how you have to work things as a profiler or detective. And some people get so upset one way or the other, like, oh, why did you even consider them suspects? Like the McCanns. People, I've gotten a lot of hate mail, all of that. How could you accuse these people of killing their child? Well, first of all, I never accused them of killing their child. I said, there's no evidence of abduction, and there's enough suspicious behavior on their part, which makes me think that there's a high chance that they may be involved in this crime. And I have to look at it that way. It doesn't matter whether I like them or don't like them. That's meaningless. The question is what actually happened, and you have to start piecing the puzzle together. And if you're an investigator, a detective, you can't always step back and say, well, I just feel like a bad person for even making that person a person of interest. No, you have to. You have to say. And especially when it comes down to children who've been, one after the other end up dead in their mother's care. There's too many people who say, I don't even want to look at the mother because I feel like a rat. Here's a mother who's just lost her baby. I feel like a rat even suspecting her. Well, if you're a detective, you can't do that. If you're a doctor, you can't do that. You do have to suspect. The same thing with the Maya Kowalski case. That's why it came down. I'm not in love with the hospital. I'm not in love with Johns Hopkins for many reasons and hospital situations, because I've been through I went through a bad hospital situation just like the Kowalskis, and I had to fight the hospital. I tried to take custody away when my child because I didn't want him to get a spinal tap. Because I thought it was unnecessary, and little three-week-old baby. And but in the Maya Kowalski case, I could see why they were suspicious, and they had the choice between being people that were mean to suspect the mother of being Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and saving this child's life, which they were concerned about, that she was in danger because of her mother. And I know people have a lot of different viewpoints on that. But all I'm saying is that as a doctor, as a teacher, as a police officer, as a detective profiler, you have to be willing to explore the different possibilities without always feeling guilty about the fact you explored them. And in the end, if it turns out the person's innocent, you go, that's good. That's good. That's good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it wasn't what I thought it was. Or not necessarily what I thought it was, but what I was willing to explore it was. So that's something. If you're going to go into this field, you got to be able to do that. Yeah. It does give co-sleeping a really bad thing. Yeah, certainly no drinking or drugs. You can't put a child in bed with you if you're half unconscious. That's just ridiculous. No, you have to take reasonable precautions. But they say children die in their cribs. Children die in many different ways. Sometimes because of the crib they were in, they get suffocated. Sometimes because, I don't know, sometimes they just stop breathing in the night. Is it some kind of anomaly that they have? Or is it being away from a parent, the mother, where they just are isolated in a situation where a child is all alone? A tiny baby is all alone by itself in a different room. I always find that kind of weird, but not everybody agrees with me on that. A lot of people have their child when they got their little monitor. They don't have a problem with the child being away. They think that's okay. And I personally find that weird, but we all have different opinions. But children die in parents' beds, and they also die away from parents' beds. So one, again, has to be a little bit reasonable in trying to make determinations about, is anybody responsible for this child's death or not? Just to be cautious, just to be not cautious, but again, if you're working as a detective or a profiler or whatever, you have to at least be willing to examine. If you can't examine because you have these preconceived ideas, or because you have, let's say you don't like the person. Let's say you can't stand them. Should that influence you? What if you absolutely adore the person? Should that influence you? When I did Michael Jackson, got some people were very upset. And I said, look, I think Michael Jackson is probably the most amazing entertainer, brilliant entertainer, fantastic singer, credible dancer, one of the most brilliant entertaining minds of all time. Does that mean he didn't like little boys? I can separate the two things. I can have a favorite author and think that person's a brilliant writer, but you're a psychopath, and I don't want you anywhere near me or my children because you're creepy. But you're a great writer. So these things can be separated. And if you're going to do investigations, you have to be able to separate those things out. Alrighty. What do I want to talk about? Oh, I just want to mention this. Oh, speaking of this, what preconceived ideas and stuff. This is Nex. This is a case I spoke about the other week. Where's this? Where's the new story on this? Nex she was a student, and the whole story was about her going into the bathroom and having this fight or being assaulted, depending on how you wanted to look at it, by other girls in the bathroom. Okay. Her name is Nex Benedict. And she was in the bathroom, and she said, originally I thought it was some girls laughed at the way they got mocked them because of the way they laughed, but then it was supposedly clothing. But anyway, she threw water on one of the girls, and the girl grabbed her hair, and then she pushed the girl, smashed the girl into the wall, and then the girl supposedly smashed next to the ground, whatever was going on. And the claim was that Nex hit her head, and then she went to the hospital, and she walked away, and she was walking in perfectly fine, went to the hospital just to do a check. And they did, and they didn't see anything wrong in her head, or they did, I think, a CAT scan or whatever, and they didn't see anything concerning. They sent her home. Next day, she died at home. And the claim was that she was murdered by the girls in the bathroom. And of course, this became an issue because of gender identity. She's non-binary, identifies as non-binary. I say she just because I can't go with the they thing. And now they're saying he, but it's very confusing. Anyway, so she, in my opinion, who chose to be non-binary, feels that way and no longer feels that way because she's dead. But anyway, the whole thing I did the other week was that we do not yet have proof. And there is no proof that she was killed by the girls in the bathroom. I don't know what happened in the bathroom. Was it true bullying, or was it just girls acting crappy toward each other? One group acting crappy toward the other. She also instigated a lot of by throwing the water on the girl. She instigated it. So I don't know who was at fault. High school students. I don't know. I was verbally bullied when I was a kid, and I didn't love high school. Wasn't my favorite place. I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. But I wasn't in any fights or anything. I just had a few insults chucked at me here and there. And the kids can be mean. I was glad I homeschooled my kids and they didn't have to go through that. Oh, so good. And but I don't know what happened in the bathroom, but there was no evidence that she was killed by what happened in the bathroom. And there was this huge outcry that she was killed by that. Well, it turns out they have just gotten the autopsy results back. A medical examiner has ruled the manner of death suicide. Apparently, it is a combination of two drugs in excess in her system, antidepressant and what the hell was the other one? Antihistamine and antidepressant, and a combined toxicity in her system to an extreme. And it's been ruled a suicide. So, of course, now you have to change now it's all the girls bullied her and that caused her to commit suicide. But, things are always more complicated than that. So I think, again, jumping to conclusions, she also had not the greatest home life. All right. So she had issues at home. I think her dad was in prison. She'd been raised by a grandmother. She had issues in her life. And when she was in the hospital, she seemed very cheery. Again, that's why you just assume that person didn't commit suicide the next day. She seemed cheery and lively. Looked like a lot going for her, regardless of, she obviously had some confusion issues where she was exploring things, but still, but then again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So before we go out and just jump to conclusions on things, here we have a situation where there was an adamant outcry that she'd been murdered by the kids in the bathroom, and turned out to be a suicide. Sometimes you just don't know. And yes, did the bullying have an effect on her? Yeah, she didn't seem to be all that bent out of shape about the bullying aspect while she was in the hospital. So, but she might have had severe depression, a whole bunch of things going on in her life that we don't know about. Because a lot of it's just suicide has become an epidemic in the United States. It really has. Because when I was growing up, never heard about suicide. No, we didn't discuss suicide. People weren't committing suicide. Kids just kind of plowed through. It's like, well, life ain't perfect. And we just, I never heard about a suicide my entire childhood, but now it seems to be, unfortunately, popular. And so I think we have a lot of work to do. Not so much preventing bullying, in my opinion, and those kind of things, but we have a lot of work to do with what the expectations of children are growing up and what we're putting them through. What are we putting them through? What kind of life are they living? What kind of life are they living in school? Do we have kind schools? Do we have kind families? Do we have kind communities? Are kids also learning that they got to buck up a little bit? And not everything goes their way. Is it social media sending them over the edge? It's all kinds of things we have to consider. But suicide is definitely epidemic these days, and it's just it's a tremendously sad thing. This is true. Media advertises suicide like they do school shooters. They've made it popular. That's just true. Books have made it popular. It's become an option. When you don't think about when you don't even think about things, it's not an option because you never thought about it. Never even crossed your damn mind. I mean, when I was growing up, never thought about suicide. Who the hell thought about suicide? I never heard about suicide. As a matter of fact, we didn't hear about having sex when we were kids either. So that's why when you got to high school, you're like, oh, did you ever kiss a guy? Because we really hadn't heard about it because we didn't have it in all the movies. There wasn't like there was never a school shooting, but it was so rare that we never heard about them. There was a whole bunch of things we never heard about. And of course, the national media and a lot of stuff that's out there really pushes a lot of unfortunate stuff these days. Yeah, that's very true. Self-conscious kids. Social media puts self-conscious kids even under greater pressure. Oh my God. Yes, it does. And the expectations of what you're supposed to look like, how you're supposed, even for adults, that's why everybody doing Botox and shit like that. It's like, it's just sad because, what's really important in life is family, friends, hobbies, doing good work, helping out in the community. Those are all the good things. And this whole obsession with, do I have the right house? Do I have the right clothes? Do I have the right couch? Oh, nonsense, bullcrap. I tell you, but it's very sad. Anyway, but that was an interesting story that just was so kind of got like crazy out of hand. Who is that? This is kind of interesting little story. This is Michelle Mack. She's 53. She ran a thing called the California Girls. She was the mastermind of a nationwide shoplifting organization, which netted the couple $8 million over a decade. And this is their warehouse with all the crap they stole. They got girls from across the world, across the nation, to steal in different cities, to go into the fancy makeup places and just wipe out the shelves. Unbelievable. I mean, you don't think of this nice mom as being a crook, that kind of a crook. It's just kind of fascinating. It's like, wow, seriously. So sometimes gangs aren't, these street gangs. It's, not always that. It's amazing. And shoplifting has become so prominent across the United States with the ability for people to steal up to $1,000 without getting a felony charge. I think that's true for a lot of states. So it's like, be sure it's $999. Don't go that dollar over, And then somebody questioned, well, does that mean you can go back? Like is that a 24-hour period? Like, so if you steal things at 11:55 at night or during the day, 11:55 a.m., you go in and you wipe out $999 worth of stuff from a store. Can you put that in the van and come back at 12:05 and steal $999 more? It's just because there is not much fear for shoplifters these days. allowing this kind of whole thing to go on, because the girls doing this, the young women doing the stealing, are apparently not really that scared. But she ran this whole ring. Let me see if I can find a story on it, just because it's how she ran it is just kind of amazing. New ridicule. Okay. Did I lose this one? Hold on one sec. Okay, that one I did lose. I lost the story on that one, but I just think that's a really kind of a fascinating thing. Well, let me go to the German story about this cannibal, because this cannibal dude, he was a teacher, which is always concerning. The guy on top is the cannibal, and the guy on the bottom is his victim. And cannibal German teacher murdered and ate a man he met on a gay dating site. So just to point out, which I like to point out a lot, we talk a lot about women who go on dating sites and get killed by men, but it isn't always that way. So for gay men, they go on gay dating sites, that can be just as dangerous. So he murdered and ate a man he met on a gay dating site. The suspect had searched, "Can you survive cutting off your penis?" And he's arrested after the bones were found. So the sniffer dogs said, let me read how this worked out. A German school teacher suspected of cannibalism in Berlin, where police believe he murdered a man he met on a dating site before eating his remains. The suspect, Stefan R., was arrested on Thursday after fleshless human bones were found in a park. Now, this is kind of amazing here. And sniffer dogs led the detectives to his apartment. So, so you thwack, when you walk out of your apartment with all the bones and chuck them in a park, that path may go back to your apartment. The investigation revealed that a 41-year-old had searched for cannibalism-related content online and had once engaged on the internet questions of whether he could survive after the penis is cut off. Now, the alleged victim, 44-year-old Stefan Trogisch, had been reported missing by his flatmates in early September after he left his apartment before midnight and never came back. They do not know whether the victim had any interest in cannibalism or not. Just he ended up being eaten. Investigators said they've obtained messages between the alleged killer and the victim on a gay dating website, leading police to believe they agreed to meet, which no doubt he did, because he thought he was the victim thought he was going to have a nice time with the guy he was meeting. Didn't go well. And I did this book. I didn't do the book. The book was written by Gunther Stampf. Gunther Stampf did also a whole series on Interview with a Cannibal. This guy, Armin, he was a cannibal. And it says here in March 2001, he killed a man and ate him with a glass of fine red wine. Kind of reminds you of Silence of the Lambs, eh? So then the question became, why? The men actually met. They had an unwritten agreement in which one of them butchered the other at his request and consumed him piece by piece. You will notice my name is on this book as an editor. I did the profile in this book. I'll link it below. I did the profile of the book, and I also edited it for American version of English. In other words, Gunther wrote the book in whatever English he spoke English, but he was concerned that it wasn't going to be quite right. So I edited the book into just more acceptable, shall we say? I don't even want to say that, but just more natural English. And then he also wanted me to profile the case, which I did. And actually, Gunther Stampf and I met a number of years later, and he was going to make a whole series, profiling series, and he wanted me to be the profiler in the series. And it was really sad. He put the series together, and it got stolen. The whole concept got stolen by an American channel. And I wasn't in it, and he wasn't in it. And it was really, I can't remember the whole way it went down, but it was kind of sad because that was going to be my show, my series. And Gunther was a really great guy. He's no longer with us. Really liked him a lot. But he wrote a great book. He did a great study of this guy. And when I read about him, what was interesting about this cannibal guy was that he visited cannibal sites because they're on the internet. And we're just talking about influences on the internet. Yeah, this is another kind of influence where once upon a time you were sitting at your house, you're a young man, let's say you're 20, and you thought, I wonder what it'd be like to eat people. You didn't have a place to go on the internet and find out what other people thought about eating people too. You couldn't go to the cannibal discussion spot and say, what do you think about, would you boil them on the thing? What should you use a good barbecue sauce? You had nobody to talk to about that. So if you had some creepy little idea in your head, it doesn't mean that there haven't been cannibals in history. There have, without social media. But some of these sites really encourage a fantasy to go from a minor fantasy to a major fantasy, to the point, same thing is true with pornography, that because you see this stuff, you see stuff that maybe you didn't even know about, or maybe you knew about, but you didn't really think about it. But now you know more about it. You think about it all the time. You want it to happen in real life. And we're seeing that with sex, where things used to be kind of forbidden type of things that people didn't, like anal sex wasn't something guys thought they should have on the first date with a girlfriend who's 13. That used to be something that a lot of people didn't even think about even doing. I'm talking about male, female. I'm not talking about gay guys. I'm talking about male, female. It was just not a thing. And maybe it became a thing in somebody's private life later on in marriage or something when they got bored, but it wasn't a thing. Now it's been found that an awful lot of young people are involving themselves, heterosexual couples, in anal sex. And it's like, why is this happening? It's because it's massive in pornography. So young men are watching pornography, and that is one of the main things in pornography now. So now they want their girlfriends to do that, where before they just wanted to make love. Now they want to do that. So, this does influence. So you go to the cannibal sites and now you're like, oh my God, all this cannibal stuff. And so Armin, the cannibal, he went to the sites, he was totally into it. And he found another guy on the site who wanted to be eaten. I mean, who wants to be eaten? It's just bizarre. But he was a willing victim. He was not, he did agree to it. This really was not a case where he was kidnapped and murdered and eaten. The guy agreed to it, and he got exactly. It's a creepy story, but it shows that you take a person who's a psychopath, who's the eater, and the guy who's being eaten, who has some kind of really serious psychological issues, that he would be willing to have that happen to him. And you put the two of them together through the internet, so we have to become very, very careful of that. Now the other fella here, that got eaten, he probably did not see that happening. He did not know that was going to happen. He was officially murdered by the other guy. He was murdered and eaten, and it wasn't. He didn't go for that. It wasn't he wasn't there planning it. But the eater was on cannibal sites. So it's this kind of very sad stuff that goes on sometimes on the internet, which is very unhealthy for the human brain. When we get an influx of very negative things that people can then obsess about, or things they just never even thought about, but now they think about, sometimes not a good thing. So keep your kids away from that crap as much as you can, so they don't turn into cannibals. Didn't the eaten guy suffer from clinical depression? Are we talking about the guy that decided to be eaten? I know I can't remember the entire story. I mean, I did do. Where's the book? Where'd it go? Oh, he's missing off my. Wait, he's missing off my shelf. Hold on a second. Oh, there he is. Yeah, interview with the cannibal. Oh yeah, he's there. I'm there. I don't remember. It's been. This book came out a long time ago, 2008. So we're talking 15 years ago now. But I'd have to reread it because I don't remember the whole story. But there is also a documentary. But if you want to buy the book, I'll link it below. It's on Amazon, and very fascinating story, horrifying but fascinating. So let me just lose my glasses. Okay, very, very creepy. Super creepy. Let's see, what else do I have here before? Oh, somebody asked me if I mentioned this fellow. This is Daniel Robinson, and nice, handsome fellow, a smart guy, went missing, and the family thinks something untoward happened to him. He got kidnapped or something. And I couldn't find too much about this case. He's a geologist, and he disappeared on in 2021. He was driving his Jeep from a job site in the desert west of Sun Valley Parkway, just off of Cactus Road, and he then vanished. And they found a vehicle, and they found some clothes lying near the vehicle. So, what the hell happened to him? His vehicle was found with significant damage in a ravine on the passenger side by a local rancher. It was found by a local rancher. It was 4 miles southwest of the job site. In the Jeep were a pair of jeans and 2 socks inside out, 2 brown work boots, and a faded orange vest. He indicates he was wearing a seatbelt at the time, but now he's missing. By the way, he's also missing a right forearm and hand, but that's because he doesn't have a right forearm. So he's missing one part of his arm, so, along with the rest of his missing body. So 4 miles from the work site. So the question would be, and of course, I think this is what the family is trying to say, is something happened to him. Somebody did something to him, which is what you normally think of your family member. Only 4 miles away, that would mean one of 2 things. He had to be with somebody who caused him to crash, and then that somebody did something to him and all this, but there's no sign at the crime scene or the crash scene of anybody dying. Or he was run off the road, but there's also no evidence of that. And that would be within 4 miles of him leaving the place. So, but what happens when you look back at some of these cases, which the family will deny? There's a whole thing about how he was acting strange before he disappeared. It said here that there were times when he seemed like he could be hallucinating, seems like he was incoherent, some mental health issue maybe. But one of the friends said he didn't make any direct or indirect suicidal ideations at the time. Another woman said that he was obsessed with her. And so he kept coming back to her house, and she was like getting creeped out. He showed up on the security footage, like even when she was out of town, he was showing up. She said they became very creepy, sending her text messages of heart emojis and saying that he loves her, even though they hardly knew each other. A day later, he texted her saying he was outside her home. She was very concerned why he would fall in love with her because she didn't lead him on. And the last thing he texted was, "The world can get better, but I'll have to take all the time I can, or we can, whatever, to name it. I'll either see you again or never see you again." People at a Waffle House said he seemed skittish and out of it when he was dining. The family denies that he has problems, but even his sister said he had some issues. And they found him. Let's see what the sister said. Seemed like a really nice guy. He enjoyed nature, he was funny, he had a lot of friends, he was outspoken, he didn't judge people, he was an extraordinary guy, just a great guy. But I can't remember, I'm trying to find out what the sister said. Sister raised an issue about him as well. Oh, he's never been found. It's been 2 years. Where is he? It's a desert. Oh, where the heck did he go? I don't know. I can't find any more information on this case. That was very useful. But I just want to point out the issue of strange behaviors prior to people going missing. That is always a really large red flag too, that they may have schizophrenia, they may have suicidal ideations, that regardless of how funny and great he is, that he's got some issues, that people they're probably minimizing or just accepting, hey, it's just a little unusual, whatever, but there's something going on that's not normal. And when a person has all these things not going on that's not normal and then vanishes, usually they either wander off in some kind of psychotic state and end up just dying, either because they got hypothermia or hyperthermia or whatever. They die because of the environment, because they can't get back, and they're not in the right state of mind, and then they end up someplace where their just body isn't found for a long time, or they actually do commit suicide, and their body's just not found for a while. And when the bodies are found, then sometimes the suspicions that somebody killed them still remain. Does that mean that a person who's acting strangely or even has suicidal ideations cannot be murdered? Well, no. See, it's like saying let's say a prostitute ends up dead. You assume, oh, a John killed her. Maybe a John didn't kill her. Maybe she was walking home from the store and she got kidnapped by a serial killer. It doesn't have to be that it was related to prostitution. But see, there's the problem. You say 90% of the time it might be related to prostitution, but the 10% may be that she was just as unlucky as any other woman walking home from the store. So usually when you have odd ideation before somebody disappears, usually it is that ideation got them, that's why they ended up dead. But then again, strange ideation can be like that, but you can still get kidnapped, or you can get yourself into a dangerous situation because your mind isn't working right, and somebody then can harm you. So, so I don't know what happened to him, but the ideation is one of those things that the family often tries to play down because they just can't believe people always want to think that their child was killed rather than they had an accidental death or committed suicide. And that the police have to deal with this a lot of times, because a lot of times the police are accused of making that stuff up. He had some weird stuff going on in his brain, and they're like, you're just saying that because you don't want to keep investigating the case. And so it's a really tricky one when you have people having weird ideations. Not that I know of. I think he's still missing, unless I missed an article, but I don't think so. I think he's still missing. Maybe he licked a toad in the desert. There are those toads. Single vehicle rollover. It appears to be that way. Went to get help and succumbed. It could be something as simple as that. It could be, got lost. A lot of times we think we're a lot better at figuring out how to get back where we are. One would think he had a road to follow. Now, it's possible he could have had a rollover, gotten out of the vehicle, thumbed a ride, and got a ride with a serial killer. That could be true. See, now this is where it gets confusing. So even if he did have weird ideations, maybe that had nothing to do with that moment in time. Maybe he just lost control of the vehicle, thumbed a ride, and he's buried in some guy's backyard. And the family's right, he was murdered. But it's very hard sometimes unless his body is found, unless they can find some evidence, they just honestly don't know, what's going to happen. Let's see. This is interesting. Allison, I followed this case about the missing geologist. His father has a channel on YouTube. He's trying to find out what happened. If I were if I were a parent of a missing child, I'd probably do whatever I could to find them, because if there's no answers, there's no answers. And of course, the father's reaching out, trying to get people to say, did they see something? Do they know something? But unfortunately, until they find evidence, either evidence of him alive, evidence of him dead, or evidence of something else that, like, suspicious stuff that could lead to something, it ends up being one of those cases where, it can go unsolved for years. And it's very sad. When a parent has a child that goes missing, and of course we're looking at the Sebastian Rogers case, that child has gone missing. Now, if the parents didn't have anything to do with it, then he did walk away. And then what happened to him? Let's assume. Now, my video. I watched that, and I have suspicions about the mother and stepfather. I do. Didn't make sense to me, a lot of what they said. And but could Sebastian have decided to walk out of the house with bare feet and a flashlight? For whatever, he decided he wanted to go hide in the woods. He decided he wanted to go explore the nighttime and find an owl. And he ends up getting lost back there and ends up dying in a way that they just can't seem to find his body. Or did he wander around the neighborhood and some creepo picked him up? Is that possible? Yes, it is. So right now, we have no proof that that child left the house on his own. We also don't have any proof that he didn't leave the house on his own. So this is where the police are at now, trying to determine where he went to. And then the mother and stepfather, and then there's the bio father, who is also with the sheriff's department, who's trying like heck to find out what happened to his son. He doesn't believe his son walked out that door. But he's searching, and they're still looking for him. The child everywhere. They're looking for his body. They're looking for him alive. They're just doing everything they can because they just don't know. Hey, Lisa, you're a little late. What the scent dogs? There was something about a landfill area that seemed like it might be there, and then it seemed like it didn't work out. It's kind of weird. Don't really know. The suicide of a loved one changes your perspective on the whole ideation. There is some comfort in knowing it was their choice. No, of course, across the board, this is what I found, that they would prefer it not be their choice. They would prefer their loved one were murdered. I mean, it goes against what you think would be the way you should think. You would think you'd say, okay, if my child or my loved one was unhappy with life to the point where they just rather not be here, I'd rather know that than to think that they were happy and some person came in and took their life from them, destroyed them when they had the whole future ahead of them that they were looking forward to. You would think that, but that's not true. I can't tell you how many people want to believe that their child who committed suicide or their loved one who committed suicide was murdered. They prefer murder any day over suicide. And I think it's the guilt issue. Because if your child, the loved one is murdered, it wasn't your fault. But if your loved one commits suicide, you wonder, what didn't I do right? What didn't I see? How did I not help that person? It's surprising, but it's true. People would prefer murder over suicide when it comes to their loved one. It also gives a place for you to be angry. You can be angry towards somebody else and not your loved one. So just kind of a weird thing, but it's kind of the way it is. Let's see. This is something interesting to point out. This is Yvonne Wood. She's a lab agent with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. Apparently, she's been. Let me see if I can find the story on this. Hold on. Here we are. It says they found that this DNA scientist manipulated data in hundreds of cases over decades. And the reason this is important to understand is that there are people assume DNA, first of all, is absolute. And it isn't necessarily always absolute. Also, sometimes DNA, when you're matching things, it's how much you think that this matches that. And there are some that can see things this way when they should have seen things slightly differently. So not all DNA is absolute. It comes down to the professional who is doing the analysis and analyzing it properly and not skewing it slightly in a direction that they want it skewed. So she's a now former forensic scientist. She manipulated or omitted DNA test results in hundreds of cases. So now they got to review her work for 30 years. Let's see, what did it say here? She was a 29-year veteran of the crime lab. She may have deviated from standard operating procedures. Oh, God, that's going to mess up a whole lot of cases, and the Innocence Project is going to roll in like you wouldn't believe. Originally, her attorney claims that the findings support her statements that she, quote, never created or reported any false inculpatory DNA matches or exclusions. Nor has she testified falsely in any hearing or trial resulting in a false conviction or an unjust imprisonment. That's her lawyer, of course. However, the agency said its forensic team discovered Woods deleted and altered data that served to conceal evidence of her tampering as well as her failure to troubleshoot issues in the testing process. It's going to be a mess. Wood's faulty analysis led to wrongful convictions, lawsuit claims. You see, this is going to be a nightmare. A week after Woods resigned from the CBI, attorney Mark Burton filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of his client, 64-year-old James Hunter, who is currently in prison. The lawsuit identifies Woods as a lead scientist in his case and alleges Hunter was prosecuted and tried based on fabricated and false evidence. And that also has to do with hair analysis and all that. And I have had suspicions in a couple cases. In the BTK case, I have issues with the DNA in that case. I have issues with DNA in a couple of cases where I just don't believe the findings or the reporting of the findings. Sometimes the findings may be what they are, but the way it's reported might just be a lie. You can fabricate a test result. Just saying, this was a result. So there have been times when, for the purposes of the prosecution, shall we say, that DNA test results have been altered. And I think in the BTK case and Dennis Rader case, the Dennis Rader was accused of killing the Otero family. And that whole thing about the DNA in that is really sketchy. I don't believe it. I don't believe the DNA in that case. I don't believe I don't believe there's evidence saying that Dennis Rader killed the Otero family. I believe Dennis Rader's a serial killer, but I'm not buying the Otero family link. I had another suspect in that case. I was out in Wichita with that. I have some videos on the BTK case. Dennis Rader's a serial killer, creepy serial killer. But I just think they were trying to close down a couple of cases. And the whole DNA thing is very suspicious in that case. So can this happen? Yes, it can. Which is just not good because, you want to believe that especially the prosecutorial system isn't doing shady stuff. You don't want to believe that. So once in a while, Innocence Project can be correct. So can be. Doesn't mean they are, but it just means they can be. All right. So before I sign off here, I want to talk about a really, really important case. Okay. A really important case. Let's see, where is it? Here's just a quick one. This isn't the one, but there's this is a story, real life weekend at Bernie's. So these ladies, this guy died, they've been stealing his money from his Social Security payments or whatever. And he died and they wanted to get more money out of the bank account. So they put him in the car dead and drove to the bank so that the bank people could say, they were allowed to get money as long as he was with them because he was elderly. And so they put his corpse in the car, drive up to the bank, to the window, and therefore they could get the money out of the bank. That's just kind of amazing what people will do, isn't it? But that's not what I was going to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was, here we go. I think this is a crime. It's a very tiny crime, but it goes to show you the ethics of people. And I'll finish the show with this. This was on Your Tango, which is a pretty garbagey site. And it's couple shares their eating money-saving hack. Oh, no, their controversial money-saving hack for eating out at restaurants. All right. When the economy's in a bad place and people are struggling financially, the people want to cut down on their money. Many have chosen not to go eat out anymore, while others do so in a budget-friendly way. All right. So this TikTok creator, Hadassah Moore, says you got to save money somehow. So she and her partner shared an interesting hack they use to save money when they eat out at restaurants. These are two unethical people who are committing essentially a crime. But, she's an influencer, so it doesn't matter. She goes, our money-saving tactic, and it's so just so ridiculous and so minor. It's just disgusting in a way. Our money-saving tactic is sharing one refillable drink when we go out to eat. In a video filmed at the diner, because these influencers like to film themselves doing these things. My God, I hope she doesn't have 1 million people following her, because if you are, you need to not do that. So she's in Tennessee. She and her partner can be seen sitting at a table that has one coffee cup. Her partner picks it up and takes a sip, then puts it down, and she follows suit. Although Moore's tactic, with quotes around it, may seem unconventional, even controversial to some, the overwhelming majority of fellow TikTokers who commented on a video thought it was a great idea. Okay, so you have a whole bunch of unethical followers, which is really shameful. Many admitted to even doing the same thing. We did this when we first started going out because we were so broke. Now we're back to doing it again. With the prices of soda these days, we do the same. $4 for a drink is insane. So what they do is they sit at the table and share the drink, and then the drink is refilled by the restaurant. Now, let me explain something that says here. Having to continuously refill a cup being used by two people is no easy thing, particularly if all the tables are doing this. Now they're saying, oh, this is what's wrong with it, that the poor waiter has to keep coming back and refilling things. Plus, skipping on drinks doesn't do the staff any favors since they're already struggling with wages and tips. It's unfair. Is it fair to put this extra pressure? This is a dumb article. Who writes these crap? Anyway, here's the thing. If you go to a restaurant and you want to share a dinner and it's permitted at that restaurant, because some people, some food is so big that two people want to share it. As long as the restaurant doesn't have a problem with you sharing food, then that's fine. You order a $15 dinner or a $20 dinner and you ask for an extra plate. I have done this in the past where I just didn't want their size of food. And I asked them if it was okay. They said yes. So you get a $20 plate and you get an extra plate and then you get half the food to the other person and you sit there. Especially older people don't eat as well. I eat too much, but some older people don't eat very much. So as a couple, they go out and they want to share dinner. My parents used to do this in their 80s because it just was too much food for them. So they always asked permission and they paid for the meal. All right. Sometimes it depends on the time of day when they'll permit things like that. Now, if you want to share a drink, that's also fine. You can ask, you say you buy a soda for this big, it's a big soda, not a refillable soda, just a soda. And you want to share that, the person's going to drink half your soda. That's fine. You paid for it. Somebody drinks half of it. So what? Now, obviously, if you're ordering less food, the tip for the waiter is less and they still have to serve your table. So yes, maybe you should leave a bigger tip for the waiter just because they're still serving you and you're not buying twice as much food. But you can't go to a buffet and get a whole pile of food on a buffet plate and then share it with somebody. Because you're paying for the buffet for one person. So if two people share it, you cheat in the restaurant. And then you go back up there and get more food and keep sharing it. You're just getting a free meal. If you have a drink that's refillable and you're sharing it and they keep on coming by and refilling it, you're cheating because it's meant for one person, refills for one person, not for two people. So you are basically stealing from the restaurant. You're either stealing from the buffet or you're stealing from the drinks. You're not, that's not the deal when you walked in there. So you're just a cheat. You're a thief. And that's not a cool thing. You should not be a thief. That's not a hack. It's not a hack. That's just stealing. A hack would be pick restaurants you can afford. Don't go to restaurants you can't afford. If you don't want to drink, just have water. You can get tap water in many restaurants and just drink that. You can choose to have cheaper food instead of the most expensive. Just don't order lobster, for God's sakes, or go someplace where the food is more priced to what you can afford, or stay home and make your own damn food because sometimes it's not cheaper, but most of the time it can be cheaper. You have the choice to either stay home, go to a restaurant. You can choose any of those things you want in order to save money, but you don't steal from the restaurant in order to save money. So what a bunch of creepy people. What a creepy TikToker and what a creepy bunch of people watching are going, oh, that's just great. We should steal too. But they don't consider it stealing. They call it a hack. It's stealing. They're a bunch of thieves. He did what? Oh, thank you, Lex. It's a very controversial opinion, but I studied that case and I worked on that case, and I was in Wichita working with a film crew actually, and we had a really fascinating suspect who matched the Otero crime very well, and also his wife died on his ex-wife, his estranged wife, went on a camping trip with him, and apparently she drowned, and he eventually brought her back in a bag. So, so anyway, you have to watch those, and you'll see what I mean. But it's Otero. It's Otero family. The Otero family. I don't think BT. I think there was an original guy, and I think there was a copycat, or just a later person. And I personally think Dennis Rader was the later guy. So let's see. Oh, aren't you nice, Lisa? I appreciate that. Yeah, stealing is stealing. Yeah. It's just, it's amazing what people come up with as an excuse for when they're actually committing a crime. It's like plagiarism is stealing. You're stealing somebody else's work and you're plagiarizing it. That's stealing. And in my opinion, in schools, you should kick that person out for stealing. You stole somebody's stuff. You misrepresented yourself on top of it, and you cheated to get a better grade. You should be booted. But it seems to be an acceptable thing these days. It's kind of horrifying. But anyway, that's my show. I'm going to go sing. I'm going to go to I forgot. See, I forgot. I've been putting the shows on Wednesday because I have chorus on Thursday, which I joined just a few weeks ago because I've never done something like that before. I've never sang before. I thought I'd try it. Because I had something to do yesterday with my family, I said, I'll just do this on Thursday. And it completely blanked that I have to be at the course at 2:30. And I'm like, what am I doing? So I moved it from 3 to 12. And some of you are super happy. And I had to get up way too early. Because I don't usually get up till at least 10 because I don't do well in the mornings. So I stay up very late. I'm a night person. So a lot of times I'm still up at 4 or 5. So 12 o'clock, I had to get up. I had to try to get myself together, get all the stuff taken care of. And then the whole computer, whatever the heck, it crashed. I don't understand why all the, why I couldn't get Microsoft or Chrome or Firefox, everything just went down. And I'm amazed we got through the show. I'm absolutely amazed, because that would have been a bummer. So I'm glad you were all here. And thank you. Are you going back to sleep? Oh, 5 o'clock, Lex. Well, at least if you had insomnia, I'm glad I could keep you up for a little while longer and give you something to do. What was that? What the heck is that picture? I don't even know what that picture is. I'll try to enjoy the singing. I'm learning. So yes, we'll see how it all goes. I really don't want to do that until I know that I can actually sing, but it's fun. It's going to be fun. So anyway, thank you all for being here. So I'll have a video out tomorrow on the Menendez brothers and their new possible evidence. So that's going to come out tomorrow. I'll be in Ocean City, Maryland. I'm going to the St. Patrick's Day parade on Saturday because my daughter has built a huge crab float because she's representing the crab cake factory, and it's this huge crab that she and her friends have created. It's amazing. So it's going to be this huge crab float, and I'm going to walk in the parade with my granddaughter, and they'll walk in the parade. They'll throw candy and blow bubbles, and I'll just walk. But I'll be back on Saturday. So on Sunday, I'll be doing my regular show at 3, and it's going to be on Sandra Cantu. I don't know if you remember this case from a long time ago, but somebody just asked me the question recently, Pat, is there a case that totally shocked you? And the Sandra Cantu case was one that everybody who was profiling that case on TV was wrong, including me. It's one of those like, gee, oh, what? And I was wrong. So this is a great case to show how anomalies happen. And so I'm going to do the Sandra Cantu case on Sunday. So I hope to see you there. And again, if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe because it keeps the channel going. And I will see you all hopefully on Sunday. And again, check out my video for the Sebastian Rogers case and whatever else I link. And I'll see you next time. Bye.